Guys, today on the TBN Israel podcast, Hezbollah is warming up their engines once again. They're not ready for the ceasefire. They're not willing to uphold the ceasefire agreement. And they've been clashing with the IDF and moving south into positions. And we might just be looking at another round with Hezbollah. And who could imagine that just a few months after we crushed Hezbollah and after the IDF withdrew to the line it's currently at, we'd be sitting here talking about Hezbollah once again being ready or gearing up towards conflict with Israel.
I think it's very important to remind all of our viewers what happened in the last round of fighting with Hezbollah. Hezbollah was the largest, strongest, biggest, most advanced, and most equipped and richest terrorist organization in the world, not just in the Middle East. And after just a few rounds of fighting with the IDF, including the beeper attack, the strikes on the communication centers of Hezbollah, and then the strike on the Dahya underground bunker that terminated the leadership of Hezbollah, including Hassan Nasrallah, the arch leader of this organization, Hezbollah was reduced to a small terrorist organization, but in the meantime... Smaller. But
there's still tens of thousands instead of close to 100,000.
Yeah, they're still the largest military force in Lebanon, bigger than the Lebanese National Army.
And the best equipped and the best paid.
Exactly.
But
five times more.
Before we start,
thank you.
I could see Toma gearing up.
Like he wants to jump on me.
Before we start, guys, where's our camera? Whatever camera we have, that one. If you're watching at home and you've tuned in, make sure you stop this video for just a second. Pause the video, press the like, the share, and the subscribe. And the reason is that's the only way we know how to get the truth out of Israel. It's only organically, only through you guys doing that. And so far, I'd say it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work, guys. About half of our viewers are subscribers. So you other half that have not yet subscribed yet, make sure to pause and do that right now.
Yeah, I'm now just looking for the subscribe button.
Have you subscribed, Yair?
Yes, I have.
Anyway, so back to the topic. Yair started with Hezbollah was this war machine that was venerated and feared in Israel for a very long time.
Venerated, I like that. That I didn't get the new word for a while.
I'm not sure. I'll work on it again. I look them up before I come into the studio. Anyway, Hezbollah was this substantial fighting force that we all feared, we were all apprehensive about. And then we found out they were not as big and bad as we expected them to be. We talk about that extensively, by the way, in the previous podcast. But what we do know about them is that they took a dramatic blow. And yet, even after all of that, and a very major campaign, and the assassinations, and the destruction of most of their weapons arsenal in the war against Israel, they're still in the tens of thousands of people. And still to this day, in one way or another, the Iranian regime is pumping money and weapons into southern Lebanon to try and jumpstart the Hezbollah terrorist organization.
Yeah, so what's happening on the ground now is that the IDF maintains 5 positions, 5 posts. We visited one of these posts inside strategic locations on the border between Israel and Lebanon, and also crossing into the Lebanese side to make sure that we can see what's happening on the ground and to make sure that Hezbollah does not try to dig up their infrastructure and the weapons stockpiles, which they do.
They are.
And these are the strikes that we're hearing every day of a bulldozer that was trying to excavate a missile site and was struck, of a Hezbollah terror cell that was scouting an area that they're not supposed to be in south of the Litani River and violating the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Lebanon.
Yeah.
These are the certain things that we hear. But on top of that, we have heard reports of the IDF striking positions of Hezbollah even in the northern sides of Lebanon because of organizing and smuggling attempts of weapons from Syria, mainly into Lebanon. And Hezbollah is not stopping. They're also getting money through personal individuals from Iran, because we have been cracking down, and the international community helped us with cracking down on major money routes of Hezbollah, but they found other ways to do it through the individual realm, meaning that they send the money to a person, smaller amounts, and that way they can get the money into the country.
Let's explain the greater scheme of things here, because I think it can get complicated. And before we dive into the details, the backstory to all of this is Israel beat Hezbollah. That already happened a while back. And since then, there's been a ceasefire agreement that has been, for the most part, upheld in Lebanon. And the main points in that ceasefire agreement, this is very different, by the way, than what's been going on in Gaza, are, first of all, that Hezbollah is supposed to be withdraw north, away from the southern part of Lebanon, away from where the Shia villages are in southern Lebanon. They're supposed to be replaced as a substantial fighting force by the Lebanese army that is supposed to be, in turn, rebuilt by an international force that funds it and trains it and builds it up, etc., etc. And all of those things, for the most part, have been happening. And then there's another part here, which Hezbollah is supposed to stay small and eventually be squeezed out of Lebanon. And on that part, that hasn't been happening.
Yeah.
That's where we are today. That's sort of the big story that we're looking at, is Hezbollah, which was an organization that was dramatically downsized and weakened, is once again trying to regain.
Yeah.
What are they trying to regain? They're trying to rebuild positions. They're trying to find their way to weapon caches and sort of fix them, build them, make them operative again. They're trying to bring in cash again so they can pay people. They're trying to recruit, and very importantly, they're trying to go down south to where they're not supposed to be present at this point.
Yeah, I think the struggle is also internally inside Lebanon, and Hezbollah is trying to regain its position as the defender of the Lebanese people, and especially the Shiite people in Lebanon that are predominantly in the southern part of the country.
Yeah.
So Hezbollah used to take care of the health care, of the social benefits of these people.
It was the government.
And sadly, the Lebanese government is not able to fill in this vacuum. So Hezbollah is again trying to regain control of these services and get the support of the people.
Wait, let me just explain what you just said, though. Because the Lebanese government is weak because Hezbollah is strong. The two are interconnected. Because
Hezbollah is like cancer in a body.
Well, I mean, let's speak practically here. Hezbollah assassinated members of the Lebanese government. Hezbollah threatened the lives of members of the Lebanese government. Hezbollah would, and the list goes on, they'd hijack things from ports within Lebanon. They would murder other people that were competition for their business model, which is smuggling and weapons. So again, this isn't some organization that just sits quietly. They were actively destroying the country of Lebanon that had already been at sort of the back end of over 40 years of civil war.
Yeah.
So this is already a destabilized country, not continuous years of war, but in peaks and intervals years of war. But here's what happens last week. The IDF starts escalating dramatically operations in Lebanon, and it just says openly, guys, Hezbollah is violating the ceasefire agreement. And it says to the Lebanese government and South Lebanese army, it says to them,
Can you explain that?
Yeah.
What it means that Hezbollah is violating the ceasefire?
So we said this previously. They're moving south. They're trying to rebuild positions. They're trying to smuggle in weapons once again. They're trying to smuggle in cash once again. All of those together, and then again move all of that, all the assets, all the power, down to the southern part of the country.
Close to the border with Israel.
Exactly, on the border with Israel. And Israel looks at that and says, guys, we're not doing this again. Let's be honest here. We're not repeating what happened previously. You are not coming back. And we send a warning, not just to Hezbollah. We send an official and public warning to the Lebanese government. And we tell them, guys, dil balak.
Yeah.
Which is, be warned.
Beware.
But immediately when we did that, the UN field note, can you read? I put you that in red there.
Yeah. The UNIFIL says they condemn the last wave of strikes, and they say it's a violation of one of the UN resolutions. Let me just be clear. We talked about this also last week in the podcast.
This is funny, actually.
I don't want to repeat all of this, but just to be very, very succinct, which is a fancy word for short.
Succinct?
Succinct, yeah.
Succinct. Never heard. Cool. I like it.
2 words in a...
Wow, I forgot already the first word.
Anyway, to be to the point, the IDF and the UN are not working hand in hand. The UN is supposed to be a neutral force. There's a peace observer, UNIFIL, and there's several other forces on the ground. Since the ceasefire agreement, they've been actively, not passively, actively working against the IDF. What does that look like? Leaking information on IDF operations and movements to Hezbollah operatives, shooting down with or electronic warfare or physical weapons, IDF drones with vague claims of they threatened our base, etc., stuff like that. Blocking and damaging IDF vehicles that are traveling through Lebanon, not once. This happens countless times, and an endless barrage of complaints against Israeli forces. They're doing this, they're doing that, they're violating this, they're violating that. There's a political element here, which is many of these forces are related with countries that have political beef with Israel. And they want to make a public move to show that they're fighting against Israel or they're fighting against Israeli agenda. That's one part.
Yeah.
The other part is they're actually against the country. They want to help Hezbollah, and Hezbollah is working hand in hand with them. So again, it's not at all a innocent bystander, an innocent viewer or observer. It's a force that's fighting against Israel with Hezbollah. And Israel looks at all of this and says, guys, big wave of hands. Guys, we are calling out what's happening here, and we're not going to play game. We're not allowing this to go again. We're not going to let this happen again. We're going to reshape this, and if it requires substantial violence, so be it.
Exactly. And you've been to one of these Hezbollah locations, which is just 100 meters away from a United Nations base, that its sole purpose is to keep the United Nations 1701, what's it called?
Resolution,
Resolution that was supposed to make sure that there are no elements that can threaten Israel or Lebanon on this area.
Yeah.
And what were there? Tunnels, missiles, AK-47s, just
entire military bases.
Just
under
within
the ground,
100 meters away from the United Nations base.
A minute or two of driving from the Israeli border.
Yeah.
Tomer and I were there together, actually.
Yeah.
And when you see things on the ground, and it's everywhere. We saw the same thing when we were visiting the western tip of the northern Galilee. Mm-hmm. Remember that when we were in Manara?
Yeah. In Manara, yeah.
The whole idea of the UN being this innocent observer, it just doesn't meet reality on the ground. You see it, their outposts are consistently aiding Hezbollah tunnels. The Hezbollah tunnels are hidden behind UN outposts or hidden under. Yeah. They're working together with them, and at best, I'd say they're just afraid of them, so they don't. They don't.
Yeah. Also,
they don't tell anyone.
Anytime there was an escalation, the United Nations peace observers moved to Israel not to get in the crossfire with the terrorists.
Yeah.
So they moved behind the Israeli line. And then they blame us for respond. So
I will just
kind of bad.
My kid, we had a funny moment with my kids. I think it was a few months before the war started. We were up in Kofi Annan.
Yeah. It's like on the Golan Heights.
In the Golan Heights, it's on what is the name of that tell?
Bental.
The Bental.
Nobody remember Kofi Annan anymore.
No.
The guy that used to be in the UN, right?
No, it's not named after him.
It's named
after him? I didn't know it was named after him. I thought it was Annan because of the cloud.
No, I think it's Kofi Annan.
Because he was there.
Because he was there. Anyway, so this cafe is on a lookout, and my kids, this is several years ago now, my son looks at these people in a funny uniform, and he says, Abba, who are these people? What costume are they wearing? And I said, they're not wearing a costume. These are soldiers from another army. He says, well, why are they here in Israel? I said, they're afraid to be inside of Syria.
So they come and drink coffee here.
No. They were holding positions in an Israeli tourist site on the mound.
Oh, I remember in the 6 Day War bunkers, trenches,
exactly.
Stuff like that.
They're in the bunkers from the Israeli 6 Day War on an Israeli tourism site. We're sitting there eating whatever it was,
and they're looking with binoculars.
Ice cream and cake, and they're observing the peace, but from the Israeli side instead of from the DMZ. From the demilitarized zone. Anyway, just to show you that the UN is a very complex entity. But we're talking about Hezbollah. Hezbollah is this, again, you need to understand the agenda behind it. They are the number one proxy machine of the Iranians. And we said this also last time we were here. Everything is happening because the Iranian regime will not, they won't die lying down. They want to make sure that whatever they can squeeze out of their proxies, they're doing it.
Exactly. That's what but also, this thing is producing money, influence around the world, not just in Lebanon or on the northern border with Israel. They have sleeper terror cells in Southern America, in Latin countries. They have places in Europe that Iran can use them in order to carry out assassination attempts against Jewish targets, Israeli targets, or anybody that doesn't go along with their ideals and plans for the future.
I just want to notice something that the political issues inside Lebanon is quite complex right now because the government herself decided to disarm Hezbollah. She accepted the American way on the ceasefire, and Hezbollah needed to be disarmed in the south.
This is what they're publicly saying.
Yeah. So the president is saying, and right now Hezbollah said nobody gonna disarm us. Mm-hmm. That's a right to have our weapons, and it's right now on the edge of Hezbollah attacking again the government herself, while the U.S. is there with non-stop politicians coming to try affecting or making the ceasefire really happen. So they saying to the Lebanese government, you need to act now. And in all this complex, we attacking and destroying Hamas position. We are the only one taking action.
Hezbollah positions.
Hezbollah position, like on that.
Yeah, and just to take what you're saying one step further, if we don't strike against those Hezbollah operatives, then they would immediately attack us. Because they're not there looking for candy or their lost wallet or credit card. What they're doing is they're retrieving anti-tank missiles. They're rebuilding positions. They're moving back missiles into their facilities and fixing places that were bombed or broken or neglected and stuff like that. And they're not doing this for the sake of show or for the sake of fun. They're doing it because they want to immediately use them against Israel as a threat against the country.
Yeah.
And we're talking about this. We need to understand there's a big play that's taking place right now in this entire region, which is the combination of diplomatic, financial, and military pressure. And we talked about this many months ago with this whole idea of maximum pressure by the American government on the Iranians. This is what it actually looks like on the ground. When you combine the tactical and the strategic, you see the Israeli forces on the ground are really putting the pressure, the squeeze on both Hezbollah and Hamas. And then on the political level, you see the American government and several other coalition countries working together with them to really put the political pressure on those governments to out Hezbollah, to replace Hamas, to do a more substantial move. But there's also an incentive and a stick, I guess, that goes with that, which is the money part of things, which is together with that, there's an incentive package to rebuild, and there's a threat of taking away everything you have if you don't play nice.
Well, it looks like what's happening in Syria, because in Syria now the sanctions were removed, and then the leadership of Syria are trying to say we are not doing anything with terrorists, we're not helping them out, we are trying to take care of the minorities, so please invest in us. And this is the same with Hezbollah. Also, if Hezbollah is strong, Syria is threatened, because the al-Julani regime pushed away all kinds of Iranian influence from the country and terminated a lot of the smuggling routes of weapons, personnel, and anything related to the Iranian influence into Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Yeah, and we need to remember that before al-Julani and HTS took over Syria.
He's a great basketball player.
I've learned.
I heard. I need to watch the movie.
It seems maybe
he's a crossover.
You can learn some moves from him, yeah.
Well, he has two knees, so he has an advantage.
He has an unfair advantage.
Who knows how many he broke in his life?
We don't want to know where he got them. Where did he get all those knees? Anyway, jokes aside, think of their government. Before HTS takes the sort of the lead of Syria, Assad doesn't actually control the country. He controls a small part of the country, mainly on the western part, mainly in the city centers.
Mainly Damascus,
Most of the Syrian desert, which is the eastern part of the country, most of that is overrun or by militias, which is sort of where HTS built itself up.
ISIS-related militias
or other
terrorist
militias,
groups.
Or overrun by the Iranians who use it just as a highway into Lebanon. That's really what was happening there, and others. Well, let's be honest here.
Right, it still happens like that for many parts of the country. It's not like he took control of the country and everything is organized.
Yeah,
we've been there.
Yeah, we were there in, what was that, a couple months ago in Syria. And you see it on the ground. I have, by the way, a close friend who both know, who's on the ground in one of the outposts we visited.
Really?
Yeah, I'll say his name when we're off air. But,
I know who.
Yeah,
exactly.
We talked about this.
I know.
And on the ground over there, it looks peaceful. And you could probably find that. I hope you could find it on our YouTube channel. But Syria is this there's mountains, but then there's these massive flatlands. And those flatlands, they seem peaceful, they seem quiet, until the moment where a convoy of terrorist trucks comes from the Syrian or the Egyptian, not the Egyptian, the Iraqi desert. They wouldn't be able to come from Egypt. Come from the Iraqi desert and drive through all the way to Israel or all the way to Lebanon. Yeah. So it's really this important passageway if you're running east-west or west-east through this region.
Nobody understands the poverty, the poorness that what the people that living there like going through.
I was shocked.
I couldn't imagine that.
15 years. Think about it this way: the Arab Spring started 15 years ago.
Wow.
And it started ripping through Syria a little after that, a couple of years later. And they've been at war since then. We saw buildings when we were inside of Syria, specifically in the eastern part. And they had war once, they had a bunch of shelling on the buildings. They patch it up, then it happens again, then it happens again. And you can literally tell that there's been a generation of war, and they just keep on putting new windows on the houses. But slowly,
the bullet holes remain.
yeah, the bullet holes remain in the walls.
Yeah, I saw it.
Exactly. It's unbelievable. The poverty is horrendous.
Sugar was a special thing over there.
I mean, it's a war-torn...
5 minutes in any coffee shop in Israel, you can take a shower with sugar free.
What? Where would you take a shower with sugar?
That's something Yemenite people do.
No, I just when we got there and I asked what stuff when we talked to them and they asked what they missing, they didn't have sugar for a while. They didn't got white sugar.
They didn't have water cookies. Also.
Yeah.
I think they said they had once a week for a few hours running water that a truck would come and deliver to the village.
The
IDF
bring them the trucks of water.
Yeah. So, just to summarize, Syria is a weakened country, as is Lebanon, and what is trying to be done here is Israel, together with the U.S., Israel from a military perspective, the U.S. from a financial and diplomatic perspective, they're all working together to try and really reshape and rebuild these countries. And they're doing it in earnest. They're really trying to give them the tools they need to build that up. Just to finish the thought on this topic, if you look at Ashara and you look at a leader of a country, the man, I don't know to say that he's a good man or a bad man. He seems like he has a very problematic background. Let's put it that way. But if you say to him, do you want to be
most wanted list, $10 million bounty on his head from the United States of America.
That's usually reserved to the bad guys.
And now he's invited to the White House. Exactly. He's just been there a few days ago.
It's an amazing story of restoration. Yeah. So anyway, you look at this story and you say to yourself, whatever his agenda is, if someone is presented with the option, do you want to be the person who completely changes the history of your country? Mm-hmm. And if you do that, we're going to remove the sanctions. We're going to give you money. We're going to give you funds from the IMF. We're going to rebuild you with humanitarian aid and engineering and other forces. We'll build up your army, and you will be the guy that took the country from this, this flea motel of a Middle Eastern country and turn it into a country that has like this Renaissance story. Mm-hmm. Who would say no to something like that? Especially when the other option is be overrun by the Iranians. Yeah. So of course he takes that option. Of course he allows, or wants to be part of that. It makes complete sense. But before we move on, we need to talk about our partner today. Mm-hmm. Our partner today is One for Israel Ministries. What they're doing, and I can say this firsthand, I know these people and have known them for many, many years, as do you, as do members of our team. The real war has ended, or at least for now, it's ending. But the spiritual war hasn't stopped. About 99% of Israelis have never heard about who we call Messiah, which is Yeshua Jesus. Yeah. And these guys, One for Israel, they're telling people about it. They're telling people about the gospel to Jewish ears in a way that is acceptable and that is not about the numbers, but about really rebuilding a relationship with these people. Not only Jews, also Arabs are finding faith and unity through them. So what they are, it's an initiative, One for Israel, created by Israelis, in Israel, for Israelis. They're good personal friends of ours. We know them. They've been working hard to bring the gospel, to teach people, to disciple people in the country, to equip leaders throughout the country. And as Romans 10:1 expresses, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they may be saved. That is a verse that really leads their operations. And if you want to get behind these guys, and I suggest doing it, they really do the real deal. Now, they are the real deal in a way that is unquestionable, in my opinion. You can do the following. You can pick up the phone. You can call 800. This is from within the U.S. or Canada, I guess. 800-879-5530. That's 800-879-5530. Help share the gospel in Israel. Or visit oneforisrael.org/pray or scan the QR code that's on the screen. I imagine it is because our monitor went to sleep
just
here.
Died, yeah.
It just died for some reason.
But yeah, definitely. Guys, we keep saying pray for the peace of Jerusalem. That's what these guys are doing. They're sharing about what God is doing in this land, what he did in the past, and what he's doing in the future. And we know these guys personally, so you can trust them.
So moving on. We talked about Hezbollah. We talked about the fact that the Lebanese government and army have been tasked by the U.S. to stop Hezbollah and to disarm them, and that they've said that they want to do that, and whether or not they're able to is a different question altogether.
So I think they're not able to.
They can try.
Lebanese government.
Look, they've already in the last year, they've been far bolder than any government has been in many years.
Yeah, that's true, but it's very easy to be bold when you have the United States and Israel on your side after Hezbollah was weakened significantly.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Now, I think now they're testing the ground to see if Israel is still willing and bold to carry out these strikes against Hezbollah so that they won't be left alone to deal with this huge terrorist organization without the backing of Israel and the United States. So they're kind of checking the ground to see if there's full backing for a long term, or it was maybe just until the war in between Israel and Hamas in Gaza ended.
Well, they're both supposed to happen at the same time.
Right?
That's
Yeah, but Hamas should be dismantled in Gaza. Hezbollah should be dismantled in Lebanon. That'll be great. Without the two huge terrorist
good for us.
armies
Very
on
good
our
for
borders.
The
It
US
will be super great.
warned that until the end of next year, Hezbollah will be disarmed.
Well, they also said that within 72 hours, all the hostages are back. We're still waiting for some. So it's a good statement, but it takes time, this thing, to dismantle a terrorist organization that doesn't want to be dismantled and is part of the political system, part of the, I don't know,
It's a
society.
religious organization. That's a huge difference. They're not just an organization or a terror organization. They build on...
Well, also Hamas is a religious organization. Also ISIS is a religious organization. Kind of all terrorist organizations, most of them are religious organizations.
Oh, from one religion.
From the radical Islam, yeah. Different sects of it, but yes.
So...
But
with
is
that,
now looking at the...
I'm thinking of where this is all going to go.
Yeah, that's the question.
I'm trying to think, getting in the head.
Where it's going.
Where is all of this going? You get in the head of Hezbollah. I'm thinking about this now. What are they trying to do? And I'd say there's the Iranian agenda. And the Iranian agenda is stir up as much trouble as you can, as fast as you can. But Hezbollah's already proven, one, that they have that mind of their own. Two, they have a natural sense of survival. They don't want to be killed all of a sudden and all at the same time by the Israeli army. And they know how to hide and they know how to remove themselves from their positions. But at the same time, they're seeing what's coming down the pipeline. And sometime down the line, the U.S. is going to withdraw its forces and effect and attention from this region. And one point down the line, Israel is likely going to withdraw at least some of its positions within Lebanon.
Oh, for sure. It happened multiple times before, just in the lifetime of Israel.
Exactly. So that will happen for Lebanon, and will likely happen for Syria. And if I was Hezbollah, I would say to myself, let's lie low, let's win whatever public PR points we can, and let's try to rebuild whatever we can. So in the day after, the day when the eyes of the world are on the next deal, or China, or Russia, or Ukraine deal, whatever it is.
Then we'll move one more meter
exactly. Then
down,
we'll go
closer to the border.
We'll go back to our villages, and we'll be quiet for a while. And what's different about Hezbollah than many other organizations, you won't hear many terrorist organizations, and you won't hear any Muslim countries admit failure or defeat. Hezbollah is different. They've done so several times in the past. Hassan Nasrallah, after the 2006 Second Lebanon War, publicly says to his own people, we underestimated the IDF and we underestimated their response, and he admits his mistake. He says we didn't.
It was the most sloppy war that we ever had.
For Israel's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very sloppy war.
We were sloppy. I remember I just began the army, and as a photographer, I went up with the units, and I could move from each one to... nobody knew what's going on, where to go.
It was a poorly managed war.
Yeah.
Very poorly managed. And I mean, we suffered dramatically because of it. But Israel learned lessons from that. We prepped for the next war substantially because of that. And Hezbollah did too. That's the thing. They learned the lessons. They know how to learn the lessons. And now they're sitting tight and they're thinking. Their leadership isn't as cohesive as it used to be.
But they never imagined, that they needed to replace 60% of the officers. All the leadership or the leaders that they had gone.
So remember, you were directing that day. We did an interview with an intelligence officer who was Hezbollah intelligence within IDF intelligence up till the beginning of the war, then switch roles here in the studio for a different project. And the guy said, it was really interesting. He said this off camera after we finished rolling. But what I'm saying is not classified. I can say this out loud.
Yeah, but anyhow, his face was blurred.
His face was blurred, so
couldn't say his name.
Anyway, so the guy says, I question him again and again and again. What happened to Hezbollah? Where did that massive fighting force that we imagined, where did they disappear? And he says, we know. He says, I interrogated, he's saying this, I interrogated some of these Hezbollah operatives and officers that we met. Smart people, educated, they know their job, they're professional soldiers in the sense that they really have a structure, they have education, they have a doctrine that they follow. And he says, these guys, for months, are watching all their peers being killed one after the other by the
I
IDF.
remember that those days that you had that tree of personnel of Hezbollah.
It was unbelievable.
And X.
And he says, the organization is not that big. They know these people, and they're watching every day. We said this almost humorously in Israel. You had the cards every day where they would publish like the images of their fallen terrorists, and for Israel, it's another win. For them, these are their colleagues, and it's public.
Yeah.
And they look at it and they say, and eventually he says, they just decided not to go to war anymore. And when the IDF in force entered into Lebanon, they didn't find much Hezbollah to fight. Except for a couple small incidents, Hezbollah didn't stop and try to fight the IDF.
They ran away.
They ran away. And they ran away because they knew they were going to lose. So you look at them, they're an army or a fighting force that knows how to learn their lessons. And they're looking right now at the situation. They said, look, we didn't expect this. They didn't expect to have their leadership wiped out. They didn't expect Iran to be dealt such a severe blow. They didn't see it coming, but they're able to learn the lesson.
But what's very interesting is during the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, Hezbollah did not launch any missiles at Israel. There was not any retaliation. They didn't help their leaders in Iran. Does that mean that they have their own kind of leadership and decision-making process? Or Iran said, you be quiet for now because we want to keep you for later?
I don't know that Iran was communicating on those days. I think their government was
They
all...
had a mess, you think?
Yeah,
but don't they have like
a
a shelf plan? Like in case the motherland is attacked, we all launch attacks. That's the ring of fire.
In that point, Hezbollah was also
was eliminated for the most part.
eliminated with most of his long-term missiles. We already exploded most of the...
But we were launching attacks against the nuclear facilities of Iran. So that's kind of the highest strategic thing that they have. And then Hezbollah, the proxies, did not respond.
Yeah, but we spent a good season pounding Hezbollah before we did that. And we had forces on the ground inside
We had
Lebanon.
a year and a half.
So they were in hiding extra, and we were on them.
And by hiding, I don't mean they're hiding in their villages. They fled southern Lebanon, and they went as far north and as far away from the IDF as they could possibly get because they knew there was a mark on their head if they came anywhere near.
Yeah,
they knew
exactly.
it.
How long is the ceasefires running already?
How long has it been?
6 months, half
Something like that.
In the last, let's say 4 months, we killed more than 400
Hezbollah
operatives. Like a pinpoint each time. This one with his car, and this one on the way with a truck, and this one, and this manager, and just this weekend, we went out and we went to factories for missiles, factory for drones. 5 villages needed to evacuate immediately. So the
IDF is working. Yeah. No, and we see that there is also heightened alert on the northern border between Israel and Hezbollah, and this area is becoming the number one, conflict going on around Israel at this moment.
Israel just decided not to be tolerant. And I'd say, if anything, that's a lesson learned from previous rounds with Hezbollah, is the minute you allow them an inch or a finger, they take the entire hand.
Exactly.
You say, all they're doing is regrouping. Okay, next day they're on the fence.
Yeah, next day you have motorcycles with Radwan commando forces within 5 minutes of our Israeli communities.
Listen, twice in my adult lifetime, I've driven on the Israeli border up north, and Hezbollah fighters were close enough for you to yell at them high and wave your hand at them. Twice in my adult lifetime.
Their flags, you could see it from the Israeli communities. You could see, hey, look, this is a Hezbollah outpost.
I went to visit a friend in Manara maybe a week before the Second Lebanon War broke out. And as I'm driving up, literally, I'm not exaggerating, they're as close to each other as, 10 meters away, 30 feet away from us. I'm driving a military vehicle, of all things, and the guy waves at me, but it's not malicious. He's just like, I live here and you live there. The guy waves at me, and I was like, that's Hezbollah. What's he doing here on the fence? And it happened in 2006, and it was the same situation 2 years ago. Exactly. They were inside the DMZ on the fence with Israel in multiple locations.
And everybody knew about it, nobody
driving-
cared.
Yeah, and the IDF said, we're not going to let this happen again. You guys are not coming near us again, period.
We were driving with our white van in the north when the
I remember, yeah.
and I think it was Alon. He was driving like crazy to run away from Cornetti missiles that will not be hit on our van.
And then they hit not far from us.
Yeah.
With a few suicide drones. That was a day.
We catched. Wow, yeah. So yeah, there were not on the border. There was like soldier on the border with missiles.
Exactly. So now the IDF is saying, we're not, at least for now, I hope we keep this lesson for long term. We're not allowing you back near our fences. We're not allowing you to threaten Israeli communities once again. We're learning that lesson. And by the way, we're learning that lesson in the entire region. We have soldiers on the ground inside Lebanon, inside Syria. The reason they're there is to create a buffer between the Israeli communities in Israel proper and the terrorist forces outside of the country. And the same applies to the Gaza Strip, and I think we'll quickly pivot to that, to what's going on there. The same applies to Gaza. There's international pressure. There's financial pressure. There's a coalition of countries that are all working together to try to create that international, stabilization force, something, whatever acronym they come up with during the week.
Under the peace committee, right? Yeah. The Fellowship of the Ring and all that.
Yeah, it sounds like a low-budget sci-fi movie. Anyway, all of that to say is that Israel's learning the lesson, and we are not stopping the military pressure until the diplomatic and the national solution is fully implemented and stabilized. And what we're seeing is that move is in Lebanon and Syria. We're still with outposts outside of the country, still collecting intelligence, still using aerial assets to bomb the countries. And at the same time, we're working together with every other country in the region to squeeze an agreement and stabilize those governments so we don't have to fight the terrorists alone. They can fight them.
Their own terrorists.
Their own terrorists and stabilize their countries. That brings us to Gaza. Gaza's been insane in the news the last week or two.
Yeah, it's crazy with all these terrorists that are still stuck on the Israeli side of the yellow line. And the attempts to find the remains of the hostages and all the fake remains that we are being given. And this is a very crazy situation. So basically, just a little short explanation about what's happening. Before the ceasefire agreement took into effect, there were terrorists on the Israeli side of the yellow line. And these terrorists remained there. Then the IDF positioned itself in the yellow line, and the terrorists were stuck in these tunnels. So now the IDF, as part of the ceasefire agreement, is trying to destroy all these terror tunnels. So some tunnels are being sealed by cement.
We're talking about
some tunnels.
400 terrorists around all the Gaza Strip being stuck.
Oh, really? I didn't know
down,
that many.
Down south.
On the Israeli side, it's like 200.
No, all over the north. That everybody talk about the 150 to 200 in Rafiah that got stuck, where they got Adar Goldin out from. So that's 200. But around the whole Gaza Strip, there is around 400 terrorists being stuck in tunnels.
And then Hamas is asking now for amnesty to these terrorists, that Israel will give them safe passage back home. So I want to ask you guys back at home, what do you think about this? Should Israel just grant safe passage to these terrorists that waged war against us and go back to the ranks of Hamas? And guess what? I don't think they're going to start selling shawarmas in Gaza. They're going to carry out more attacks against us if I put my money on it, you know.
Hamas destroyed all the shawarma shops.
Yeah, that's another very big dramatic issue in Gaza.
He closed all of them.
Yeah, he wants a monopoly on the shawarma.
It's understandable.
Well,
shawarma is a hot commodity in the Middle East.
Exactly.
And in many European capitals.
Anyway, we have people here from Canada, and I would like to offer them to ask us a question if they want to come up here. Don't have to if you don't want to, but if you do. אחד, שתיים. 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? לא, הוא אלון. הדלקתי אותו. לפתור למעלה. היי.
העבירו את גולדין.
העבירו אותו?
So.
יפה.
תומר, יש לך מיקרופון או משהו? Maybe you can come closer here, because this microphone is dead. come up here.
שלי לא יגיע אליך.
Okay. So, yes, you can speak.
So I'd like to say these guys are terrific. First of all, I listen every night. My wife is Catholic, and she's more of a Zionist than I am. And I'm just, my question is, will Israel ever be militarily independent and strong enough not to have to put up with all the BS in the rest of the world?
In what sense?
Well, that they don't have to kowtow to outside opinion. They can just do what they feel is correct and right, and just do it.
There's a premise to your question, which is that outside influence is necessarily bad. And I would say I'm not sure I agree with that. I'd say there's a lot of good in the fact that we have people outside of the country that care for us. These are not, I mean, criticism is one thing, but there are a lot of people outside of Israel that care about Israel, care about the people of Israel, and can also separate between poor decisions by leadership and what's good for the country, and call us out in back channels or directly. And as far as like practically being fully self-sufficient, this has been a huge political discussion after some bizarre claims that Netanyahu made in an offhand way in a very unsuccessful press conference about Israeli finances, where he talked about Israel being the Sparta and the Athens of the modern world. It was heavily criticized by the Israeli public because it's irrational. Israel doesn't want to be Sparta, and we all know what happened to Sparta, what the books say that happened to Sparta. They disappeared long ago. But also, we don't want to be the kind of country that is trying to do everything on its own. It's good for us to have an alliance. We're an island economy. The best thing for us, financially, socially, geopolitically, would be to have stability and peace in our region and stability and peace in our relationships with other countries. And just to give you a quick answer, I grew up in a country, when I was a kid, there were about 2 car brands you could buy in this country. I don't know if you know that. You couldn't buy jeans in Israel. You could buy a Peugeot and you could buy a Subaru. No other car manufacturer would sell to Israel because of the Arab League's boycott on the country. You couldn't buy clothing. You couldn't buy, what was it, Pepsi-Cola. We didn't have. We didn't have McDonald's. Nothing. Most countries boycotted Israel.
In the 90s.
Yeah. But we had hummus. Hummus is the best. We invented it.
Anyway, those are the days we were thinking a country that had at the time 3 million people. We're thinking and trying to make our own jet fighter, the Levi project. This is in the 80s because no one would sell us jet fighters. We don't want to go back to that place. We want to be part of the superpowers of the world. Look, the U.S. doesn't make it its own weapons. The U.S. is reliant on chips from Taiwan and components from other countries and rare earth minerals from other countries. There is no, in a global economy, there is no one country that's just simply an island. It's all about who your friends are and what your alliances are. That said, if that's what you're going for, I would say that it would be wonderful if we were stronger politically on a world stage to be able to punch above our weight class, to be able to tell countries who are obviously being anti-Semitic or anti-Israeli or motivated from an ulterior motive to just say, off with your opinions. We're uninterested in hearing them. That would be a nice thing to have, to be able to really call out those other countries or publicly answer them for the BS that they're spreading about us. But in the sense of wanting to be isolated, I think it's the opposite. We want to be a recognized country. We want to be part of the family of nations. We want to be a legitimate and respected country.
And bring light to the nations.
Yeah. I don't think the family of nations unfortunately wants the Jews. I mean, you just see, we're from Canada. Every day we're crying. What's the answer? Every day we're crying there with what's going on, at the hate for Israel.
I agree with you.
It's awful, and we just wish we could, thank God for the states what Trump did. It's incredible. It's miracles.
Do you read the Bible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you look at a lot of the end times text, and it's very confusing in modern times to read them. Because it talks, on the one hand, of all the nations of the world rising up against Israel. And at the same time, it talks about the opposite. It talks about all the nations of the earth looking to Israel and saying, this is the nation that God spared. This is the nation that God showed his mercy to. This is the nation that God showed his faithfulness to. And they go into the passages. Come, let us go up to the house of the Lord. It talks about the nations rising up to that occasion. And I think in a very unpredictable way, you see some of that. Look at what happened in the last 30 days in this region. We're a country that was, actively bombing the Qataris. The next thing you know, 2 weeks later, the Qataris sent a mission of people to Sharm el-Sheikh to negotiate how they can rebuild peace inside our borders, inside the Gaza Strip. You look at other countries in Europe, the French recognizing the Palestinian state and others. The next thing you know, they're standing on a stage in Sharm el-Sheikh. Trump's mocking them for not being involved in the peace process, but they're trying to get once again in on what's happening here. And you look at that, I think it's very unpredictable what happens. And also there's a very, very clear line where countries are now recognizing what's good and evil, and they were uncomfortable saying, oh, we want to side with Israel. They wake up one day to find out they have 1 million Muslims in their country that are rioting, raping, and destroying things, and suddenly they want to learn from us how to deal with the problem of radical Islam. So I think it's, I'll tell you what I know. God's faithful, and he's been faithful to Israel throughout history. That's what I know. And we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We don't know what it's going to look like. We just know what the ultimate story is.
Every generation will rise against us, and it's prophecy. I mean, we thought, we went to Canada. There's no such thing anymore. This is in the past. We're a modern country now.
Yeah.
And Canada is a pus of worms of Jewish hatred. It's horrible to see. Why? I mean, it's just hard to, it's so hard to really understand. But now they see Israel as power.
Yeah.
Power all of a sudden has changed the whole world. God's changed the whole world, giving Israel this power, this tremendous power.
Yeah, but history goes in a cycle. It goes in a cycle of oppression and persecution against the Jews. And it goes in a cycle that's I find fascinating, where it's humanism. It's human hubris that thinks it's better than God and God's plan and God's word, thinks about individualism, abandons God's plan, wakes up one morning to find out they're living in a bed of worms, as you describe it, and then they look around and it's like, wait a minute, how is this country prospering?
Yes.
How is this country prospering?
Yes.
Let's get alongside them. That's scripture.
Yes.
That, what you're describing, is scripture.
Yes.
100% through and through.
Yes. I don't know. Like, I just think it's thank God for the iron beam. I just think I just wish our country had the guts like Israel to stand up, but we're just so weak. They're just so weak.
Yeah. So let's add to today's call to prayer. Pray for the people of Canada.
Amen.
But it's say any country in the world, the prayer should be that country has leadership that is God-fearing and Bible reading. That should be the prayer. That they're Bible reading and God-fearing leadership, and that the people adapt that understanding. That's really what it is. And I'd say,
the older you get, the more you believe it.
Yeah.
The older you get, the more you believe it. So.
Your name again?
Norman Levine.
Norman Levine. Thank you for coming by.
Well, we really appreciate what you're doing for the world. Really,
Thank you.
Honest to God, in Canada. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, for those of you who do not know how much this microphone weighs, it's very, very heavy, and I feel very proud of myself for holding it for this long, guys. And for those of you who's joined us up until now, thank you for being with us here in Jerusalem. If you are in the neighborhood, in the Middle East, in Israel, give us a call, leave a comment, and come visit us here at the TBN Israel studios in Jerusalem. You get to meet the one and only Mati Shoshani,
And the one and only Yair Pinto.
and one and only Tomer Zmora.
Hello.
Thank you so much. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Amen to that. Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.